Like I said, Robert's
So
away. We'll start again. Welcome everyone to Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures. I have a guest speaker here, Steve McDonald, a fellow camper and outdoors enthusiast. Robert is away for this week. He should be back next week. He's just not feeling quite up to it. We all hope he'll feel better very soon. In the meantime, our topic tonight is going to be camping in the fall and winter as the colder months, shorter days, and additional.
the good news is that, renewed appreciation for Robert being the technical guy who usually looks after these things. So,
Oh man, I have
kudos to Robert on the great job he does, and he's been missed.
I have huge appreciation for everything Robert does, because honestly, without Robert, this would not be running the way it is. It would probably have died quite a while ago.
Yeah, it's all good.
But we will persevere, and I've done this before, so it does eventually work, always.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as you were saying earlier, Steve, when nobody could really hear us, you were saying that this seems to be an activity that's getting more popular. More and more people are getting into it.
It is, yeah. And what I said, and I don't know if I can say it as well the second time, but there's so many great sports going through the fall and the winter. Some people are into skiing, snowmobiling, that sort of thing. But I've really noticed over the last couple of years that there's been a really surging interest in winter camping. And the beauty about the fall is that you can really kind of segue into camping outside of the summer and start to develop a sense of comfort in, evenings that are a little bit cooler, mornings that are a little bit cooler, and kind of dip your toes in the whole thing before we start seeing the white stuff on the ground. So, to me, it's the perfect time of year to get out there and kind of check out. I don't know if I call it a sport. It is for some, but just another way to get out there and enjoy the outdoors. Kind of before the really colder weather hits.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And in fact, you really hit on a good point there. This whole fall, and it is starting to get colder, and this is the time to test your gear and figure out what your gear is capable of, because trying to do this on the coldest night of the year as your first winter camp might lead you to a lot of nasty surprises. And I've been out in some pretty cold weather and stuff, and learning your gear and what works and what doesn't, it is good to transition into that, and getting out there and testing that gear in a safe environment where you have options. I think is great.
Yep.
I've seen a few questions today on Facebook, a few people saying they're getting into this. This is their plan, this is their year, they're going to do it, and they want to know what to do. They basically had stated that they're starting fresh, so they want to know everything. And there was dozens of really good comments on there of people giving suggestions and stuff, and it's really easy to get overwhelmed. So what was the first thing for you, Steve, that you found you had to learn? What was your biggest...
One of the very first times that I went camping was actually in February, and it was eye-opening. I took my oldest daughter with me, and I'd done a fair amount of research, so I felt fairly confident that we had the right stuff with us to be, if not comfortable, at least safe. We were not going to freeze. We'd be okay. And I want to say it was maybe -8 that night. And, it was really, I had camped as a kid, but this was a very different thing from being in a travel trailer with my parents to being in a tent, in a sleeping bag with snow on the ground. And it was eye-opening. It's a very, very different experience. It was incredibly refreshing to wake up in the morning And man, let me tell you, for anyone who has trouble waking up, you wake up very quickly. It's a quick wake up. But to get up in the morning when it is crispy outside, boil some water and make a cup of coffee. It's the best feeling. There's nothing like it. There really isn't. Like it was a bit of a shock. I knew that I was immersing myself very quickly, and that I also had my daughter with me, and I certainly wanted her to be comfortable. So, I took a lot of precautions that we'll probably talk about. We were fairly close to our vehicle, that sort of thing. But it was an absolute blast. I loved it. I did wake up cold a couple of times, but not freezing by any stretch. And I was sold. I loved it. I had a blast.
Yeah.
And she did too. Like, it's definitely, I consider it a group activity. It's something that is only more fun with friends or family. And fall is the perfect time to kind of dip your toes in the water and see how you feel about waking up on a morning that's a little bit cooler. Going to bed in a sleeping bag that's maybe a little bit cool when you get into it, but it warms up. Just to try to test that stuff out and see what you think.
So one of the tricks I do for winter is I take I think they're called body warmers, but they're like a hand warmer, but they're about 4 times as big. And I open up one of those and I just toss it in my sleeping bag, and then when I get in, it's not quite as chilly. And then I make sure it sits by my toes, because that's what gets cold for me. But a couple of my experiences are very similar to yours. I've taken my oldest daughter in with me a few times now, and we've done the hot tent camping. We've done the hammocks. We did hammocks the coldest night of the year 2-3 years ago. We did it down in the valley with a few friends. They had decided they were getting together, and I met a few new people. And honestly, it's people I've talked to on the internet for quite a while, but never got to meet. And it's similar like how me and you met. We've been talking for quite a while, through this channel and through other means. But the first time I met was actually camping with you, and it's the way I meet some of the best people in the world, believe it or not, is by taking that risk. And it's really interesting how many people say, "Oh, you're going to get murdered. You're going to, these are going to be serial killers. You're going to be in," but it's not. Like, it's worth the risk. I find to meet new people and get out there. And so I took my daughter, same as you, and I was worried about us being cold, so I borrowed some extra sleeping bags from a buddy of mine, and I had her stuffed in there like a little cocoon inside her sleeping bag. So she's in there. She's like, I barely have room to move in my hammock. I'm like, but you won't be cold. And one of my buddies' father, he owned the land we were camping on. He actually came down. He's like, you guys are going to freeze to death. And I'm like, no, we're going to be fine. We're going to be okay. And they had a little hut, and I'm sure if he's listening, he knows who he is. It was a great time. And they had a little hut with a little wood stove, so if anyone got cold, they could go down there. And I met some awesome people and camped. And it is great. It's like you said, you get to meet people, and you get to sit around, and because it is dark, and some people, it gets dark, it's going to be boring. No, you get a nice fire going, you're all sitting around the fire, you're chatting, you're telling stories, and it's really, really interesting, the things that come out and the things you learn.
It's a funny thing because, for people who, and this is ever so slightly off topic, but it's a good example. For people who have hot tubs, and people who love to get into their hot tub in the evening.
Yeah.
Everyone who has a hot tub will tell you how much they love it in the winter. Because the only thing that's nicer than sitting around a campfire in the summer is sitting around a campfire in the winter. Or in the fall. It's a completely different feeling when you can feel that warmth. It's just different, and it's worth it. Like, you can't beat it.
No, and you appreciate it so much. Like you said, the coffee in the morning, that's so much more. I mean, for me, it's tea, but I understand the theory completely, right? The hot chocolate, the coffee, the nice fire, getting everything ready, and a sense of accomplishment when you're finished with it. Like, you come back and you sit there and you realize that probably 90% of the world would never even try it. Like, if you told 90% of the population, yeah, we're going to go out, we're going to camp in a minus 20 something degree weather in the woods with a small wood stove or in a hammock with just an underquilt and a sleeping bag, they're going to look at you like you're half nuts.
Absolutely. Yep.
But it's doable, and absolutely anyone can do it. I stand firmly behind that. If you're interested in doing it, there's a way to do it, and you can do it, and it's such an accomplishment. If it just makes you feel so much better about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's sounds like we're getting a little bit more into the winter stuff, but all of these things, it takes a little bit of gear, not tons. It depends on what your camping wants your camping to look like, but it's not super difficult to do this stuff. Really, like during the day, it's pretty easy to stay warm. Most of us like to be fairly toasty when we sleep, so it's a lot more about the nighttime. It's funny you mentioned the little heat packs, and they come in all shapes and sizes. Little hand warmers that can go inside your gloves and mittens. But that first night that I went out with my daughter, and it was pretty nippy out. -8. It's not -20, but it was cool. And I did a similar thing. I tossed a few of those in the bottom of my sleeping bag and threw a whole bunch of them into hers because just like you, I wanted to make sure that she was warm. And I actually woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning because I had one of these things on the side of my leg, and it was hot.
Oh yeah.
And they really get warm. And I actually had to pull the thing out of my sleeping bag. And something that I learned is that from now on I will take those things, and when I take my socks off, I actually put them in my socks, then throw them in my sleeping bag because they get really warm.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were at no point were we cold. I think I woke up and maybe my nose was a little cold at one point, but I'm also one of those people who will drive in the winter with my window down in the car, so I really enjoy the feeling of cool air on my face. But it's a blast. It's a real blast, and people are surprised that other people do this.
They are, but once you do it, I mean, it's hard to go back and not. The thing I find a big difference is in the summer on a hot day, there's not much you can do to escape the heat. You can jump in the lake, yeah, you can do that. But even like some of the lakes here in Nova Scotia in the summer, they're not that cool. I mean, some are, but some are not. Like, it cools you down a bit, but there's no escaping it. And in the winter, you can always put on an extra jacket. You can add a layer of clothing. So if you have the right clothing, you have the right layers, and you have a decent shelter. And the shelter doesn't have to be a full tent.
Oh God!
The other weekend when we were out, you were very comfortable in just a tarp.
I slept under a tarp. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a beautiful, like we were fairly close to a lake. There was a beautiful breeze coming off the lake.
Yeah.
And I had a tent with me. Thought about setting it up, and just thought, no, you know what? There's a really nice breeze here. I think I'll just set it up.
Whoa.
About getting wet. That's all I needed. It was. I was very comfortable. Actually, I slept. The first night, it's a little damp. Found it a little bit clammy, but the second night, I had a fantastic sleep.
Yeah. No, I walked by in the morning. You looked quite peaceful, but
I was still out. Yeah, you were up before me. And it's funny because one of my least favorite things about camping in the summer is, depending on where your tent is set up, waking up and the sun has already hit your tent.
Yeah.
And you wake up and your tent is already an oven.
Yeah.
Like that to me is like, I don't want to wake up that way. I would far rather wake up with a nice cool, on a nice cool morning. Yeah. And I enjoy a sunrise, but not when it's turning my tent into an oven and, first week of August. It's not my thing.
One of my goals every time I go is, if I can, try to beat the sun and get up. And I've camped with quite a few people who do this, and some of them are much better at it than me. But they make sure they get up early enough and have their coffee or their tea brewed up, and they go down and they find a perfect vantage point and just sit there and watch the sun come up. And they'll sit there for like 45 minutes and really enjoy it, because it is.
Because I think part of it is, like, because the days are getting shorter, very often when you're out camping, like, people tend to go to bed a little bit earlier because, of course, it's dark. And once you've had your time sitting around the campfire, generally a lot of people want to turn in and start getting comfortable. So I find it tends to be a bit of an earlier to bed scenario. Earlier to bed, earlier to rise. Yeah. And what a great opportunity to get up. If you're not that person that usually sees the sunrise, that's the time to do it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I am not usually a sunrise person, but, because, I mean, just depending on people's schedules, they can't always do that. Yeah. But being out in the woods, that's the time to do it. Because, I mean, you end up going to bed, 9, 10 o'clock, even if that's not your normal schedule. It changes when you're out there. So,
for me, it changes trip to trip, honestly, and a company. Like, we were out. I had my daughter with me. She wanted to go to bed early, and she wanted me there, so I didn't get to stay up as late as I probably would have. I know
sure.
You guys got to stay up a bit later. Nights, many nights, I'm the last one in, and oftentimes, believe it or not, the first one up. And I know I joked about it, and you might say I'm a liar because of last weekend, but I'm usually the last one packed too. Like, when everything's said and done, I am the last one putting gear away. I'm still stuffing things in bags.
Well, we were chasing the rain a bit, so and no one likes putting away wet gear, so
no,
we're trying to do that.
I got back here, and it was a couple of days before I got to taking my tent out, and I hung it up, and it was dripping, like there was water just falling out. It only took half hours, though, and it was already starting to be dry. It didn't take long to dry once I got it out on a good day. But that's an important thing. And that's something else as the winter comes on and the temperature drops down. I mean, we lose some of that humidity in the air. Now, here in Nova Scotia, I find humidity, even in winter, is a bit higher than most places that I have been, and I've been halfway across the country. So the cold here is colder, and it really took me a while to understand it. The cold here does feel colder. Minus 20 here is bitter cold, where minus 20 in central Newfoundland, where I'm originally from, is cold, but you can be out there in a t-shirt cutting wood all day long. And
dry cold.
Huh? It's a dry cold, cold. And I always heard people saying, like, that's foolishness. But until you've experienced a dry cold and a damp cold, you know, 5-6 degrees on a damp cold day feels like minus something.
It's the same with the heat, is it not? I mean, when it's hot out, they do the whole Humidex thing, and it can be 35 degrees, but if there is humidity combined, then, very well feel like, 38, something like that. So I've heard people that live in very hot climates say it doesn't feel the same way as it does here because of that humidity. And, it changes things.
So what have you got for under insulation? Because a lot of people underestimate how important having insulation under you is in the winter as opposed to in the summer.
So in terms of winter camping, so far I have been what most people would call a car camper. I like being close to my vehicle when I'm camping in the winter. I like that sense of security, of knowing that if it gets too cold, you know what? I'll go into the car, start it up, fire up the heater. Everything is good. Worst case scenario. I am not a highly experienced winter camper. I'm not that guy. Not yet. No, but I'm working on it.
We're going to fix that for you.
We will work on that. We will fix it. And for anyone wanting to try it, like the first time, that really is the easiest way to go, is to pick the right spot where you can be close to your vehicle, give you a sense of security. But it also allows you to bring extra. You can bring all kinds of stuff, extra blankets. So there were a few things that I did in the colder weather that I thought would make a difference. And of course, super important to think about what's underneath you, because of course you're potentially laying on the cold ground if you're in a tent. So I actually picked up some of the foam pads, like interlocking foam pads. People use them everywhere from gym floors to floors of their garage. But I grabbed enough of these things to kind of make myself a square the size of my tent.
Yeah.
After I set the tent up, I set up these foam squares as kind of a base layer, and they're maybe half an inch thick, 3/8, half an inch.
Yeah, I got a dozen over there.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a really great barrier to kind of get us up off the snow. And then of course we had regular sleeping pads above that, inflatable sleeping pads, and then our tents on top of that. And I don't think that either one of us ever felt like cold from below. Really, it was just the air in the tent that was cold. That was it. Body wise, we were not cold. I actually I woke up sweating in the middle of the night, so which is a whole different issue, because you don't want to sweat when it's cold either. So I found myself unzipping my sleeping bag, letting some air get in, make sure that I wasn't sweating, and kind of cooling myself off so that I wouldn't be overheated. And I know some of you other guys are into other, hammock camping in the winter and fancy stuff like that, which I haven't tried yet, but I'll get there.
The gear is here. You know that. But no, I have done the hammock camping, and I have tried a few methods with that. I have the underquilts, which I absolutely love. It does add a comfort level, because you're only on the fabric of the hammock. Right. Where with other things, like I've used foam pads, I've used windshield reflectors, the folding. I'll show you one.
Like reflective.
Yeah, now's the time of year you go down to Canadian Tire, Walmart, and in the bins they have these little folding things to go in your windshields.
Oh yeah.
And so I picked nice flowery ones, but they have the silver side, and you put that silver side up, and it reflects the heat back at you. It is an amazingly good method, and it works for on the ground too. Just buy one of these. They weigh nothing. Like, they actually do weigh like next to nothing. It's
how long have they been? Like, maybe would they be 6 feet, 5 feet?
I wouldn't call it 6 feet. It would cover your torso, probably from the back to the back of your knees, which is what you're most concerned about anyways.
Yeah.
Something like that. It doesn't weigh a lot. It works. I've used those in hammocks. I've used them on the ground. I've used the cheap Walmart foam mattresses. I have used the interlocking foam pads. And I've used a few other methods. A wool blanket works really good too, surprisingly good. As a help, and all these things added together kind of really help. I've heard of a lot of people that just take your ultralight mattresses, which I now have apparently way more than I ever thought I would, and just wrap that in a wool blanket, and maybe even one of those reflective mylar blankets underneath that, and man, your R value on that, I mean, I'm not sure what it would come up with, but I say it would challenge some of your most expensive pads that you can buy.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, insulation is insulation. I mean, whether it's under your body camping or in your house, I mean, the idea is to create air spaces between the warm area and the cold area, so that those air spaces can warm up.
Yeah.
So, anything that you can do to create those air pockets is
Yeah.
is going to help.
Nice trapped air warms up. It can't go anywhere, so it doesn't dissipate that heat, and it keeps you warm. I mean, that's how your sleeping bag works. That's how your down sleeping bag creates large volume of stagnant air that just doesn't allow the heat to escape.
Exactly.
When you get down to that, I mean, you have so many options. I see Red Bear Tactical talking about it. Like, he's saying you used to get your old military gear. Now you can get civilian gear that's probably just as good or very similar. You get your down, your synthetics, your hybrids. Some guys are using quilts. They don't bother with the sleeping bags because quilts can actually be fitted and not actually weigh as much. So you can shave a few grams there if that's what you're into. What else do we got there? I want to say make sure your vehicle's reliable enough to start. I had a close call with the Jeep. Well, sorry there, Red Bear, but it is a Jeep. Started on the cold camp staying in. I jest, of course. I mean, some Jeeps are awesome, but make sure that it is reliable and a good battery. In a cold night, a bad battery will not start any vehicle, and you may not realize that it's a bad battery until it's too late. And that's not when you want to be discovering it at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're freezing and you want to get started and you're out trying to click it over and nothing's happening.
And this is why fall camping is so great, because it gives you a chance to test all of these things and try it.
And it's why camping with a few friends is always good. Every time you camp with friends, like they'll always, I think we all do it. We all bring a little bit extra just in case someone needs it or whatever. And if something happens to your gear, you have some options. They're there to help you out. And honestly, I mean, a lot of us are guys and we love to rib each other, but nobody's going to let anyone get hurt. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to have some fun with it. We're going to torment you and tease you and make sure you don't do it twice. But I think it's harmless. I do think that nobody's doing it.
It's part of the learning process.
Yeah. But it's good, and I mean most modern vehicles have like heated seats and stuff. So I've thought of it that like when I've gone camping with my van, and someone said, "What are you gonna do if you get real cold?" I said, "If I get too cold, I'm putting it in the van. I'm starting it up. I'm hitting the heated seats and reclining, and I'm going back to sleep."
Absolutely, yeah. This is not a torture thing.
No.
People don't do this to torture themselves. They do it because they genuinely love it, and they found a way to make it enjoyable and comfortable, and to have a blast. I mean, I can't imagine going camping in the fall or the winter and being cold. There's nothing fun about that.
No.
The trick is to, learn some ways to make yourself comfortable in this environment. And when you've done that and you go, wow, like I had a great sleep and I wasn't cold and I had a blast, and you can kind of look at yourself in the mirror and go, wow, like I can do this. It's really not that hard. No one should be going fall or winter camping because they enjoy freezing. It's not about that at all.
That would be a miserable experience. Another quick trick for everyone, if you are worried about getting cold at night, eat a good warm meal before you go to bed. Something with a lot of nutrition in it and a lot of energy, because your body works fairly hard to digest food, so it produces heat while digesting that food, plus the heat you just absorbed with that warm food. So eating a good meal before you go to bed is going to give you a few degrees advantage over someone who didn't eat just before they went to bed.
Your body continues working even when you're not.
And this is the one I don't fully understand, but I know it to be true. Don't resist the urge to go pee. A lot of people like, it's cold, I don't want to get out, and you sit there and you suffer for an extra half hour, 45 minutes because you just didn't want to get out. But it is best, like when you do need to pee, just get it over with. Do it, get it over with, because retaining that water and keeping it warm is wasting energy and just making you miserable, keeping you up. And it can be hard. especially for the women. For the guys, we have a bit of an advantage here, admit it. But for the women, it is a bit worse.
Yeah, I mean, there are ways to deal with it. You know, I know that you guys have done different videos on this in the past about, you know, camping in the winter and whether you're keeping a little bottle inside the tent, that sort of thing. You know, there's things that can help that can make it a little bit easier. So just a little bit of research in advance. And, you know, there are even, listen, not to get gross at all, but the funny thing is that if you pee in a bottle at 4 o'clock in the morning and you put the top on that bottle nice and tight, that's a really warm bottle.
It is.
So, you know, that can go in your sleeping bag down by your feet. Like I said, make sure the top is on tight. But, you know, these things, you can think of them as a challenge or you can think of it as an opportunity. And, you know what? You just made yourself a hot water bottle. So.
This is true, and I'm not saying you're wrong. Yeah. I just don't trust myself to.
I've never done it myself.
Yeah.
You know, to actually put that bottle in the sleeping bag, I haven't been that cold to try that, but I hear it's been done.
The one I've heard of is people doing it in a hammock, and I don't know if you've ever slept in a hammock, but doing things in a hammock has its own whole list of challenges. And I know it can be done. I do know, and I'm sure I could do it, but I don't relish the concept of doing it. But it definitely can be done.
Yeah. Ben, I jotted in a couple quick little things, like specifically about fall.
Yeah.
Fall camping. You know, obviously the evenings and the mornings tend to be cooler. So, you know, certainly important to check the weather before you go.
Oh, for sure.
See what you're going to be dealing with. You know, there's a lot of variance there. Right now, I mean, we're starting to get frost warnings. So, you know, there are some mornings that are pretty nice. There's some mornings that can be pretty cool. So kind of knowing what you're going into. A little more common for it to rain now. So you might want to think about rain gear. A little different in the summer, you know, it's going to be super hot out. You get a little bit damp. You can hang stuff up and dry it up pretty quick.
Yeah.
This time of year, it's a little tougher to dry things out. So, you know, having a rain jacket, that sort of thing. A tarp that you can hide under, which is what we did the last time we went out because it rained. But, you know, the weather thing, it's starting to get a little bit different right now. So just kind of keeping an eye on it.
Yeah, I agree. No, I almost always have at least one spare tarp with me.
Yeah.
Because honestly, the uses of a tarp are endless. And
I was going to say one spare tarp. 4?
At least one. Yeah. Last time we were hard camping, so I had
that's true.
I had significantly more gear than any one person really needed. So I had
fair enough.
I had a whole hammock system that I didn't even pull out while we were there. I had 2 tarp systems that I did pull out and we did play with a little bit. I got to see your tarp system, which I was very impressed with. So, but yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things, like when you're out there with somebody, your points are all very valid, by the way. You stay dry for sure. It's super important in the cold weather to stay dry and keep your stuff dry, and it's hard to fix it. Your sleeping bag especially, because if it gets wet, it's not only useless, it's going to be difficult to deal with in any way, shape, or form. When you get out with a bunch of guys.
The other big one for me, I mean, honestly, this time of year is insects. You know, did we just freeze?
What? No, I think we're doing good.
Maybe we froze for a second.
Oh, okay.
Like this time of year, camping in the fall, insects, which you know is an issue for a lot of people. If you're someone that avoids camping in the summer because you don't enjoy the smallest members of nature being around you, mosquitoes, black flies, all that sort of thing, this is the time of year to get out there and go camping. I mean, it's fantastic. The bugs are essentially gone, and you know, why not take advantage of that?
Oh yeah, no, It was great. Although I gotta say, I when I came back, I did find a few bug bites on me that I didn't know I had gotten.
Did you have a few?
Yeah, especially on one of my hips.
That's funny because I'm usually the one that gets bitten. Like I've always said like that the insects are attracted to me because I'm so sweet, which may or may not be true. I don't know. But yeah, I don't think I had any bites. I managed to walk through some kind of thorn bush and cut my leg.
Yes.
But that was pretty much it. That's all that happened to me. I didn't have any bites at all. Which really, I mean, for being out in the middle of the woods and not one insect bite is pretty amazing. I did flick one tick off my shoe at one point. That is literally the only one I saw.
Yeah, I
all weekend. I'm not sure if you. Yeah, no. I looked down and it was like crawling up my shoe toward my sock. Flipped it off. Done. So for all those people who are concerned about the creepy crawlies, I mean, this is literally the time to go camping.
Oh yeah, no.
It's perfect.
And we had actually really good luck at foraging for food.
Yeah.
So we spent probably 3 or 4 hours, if not more, just looking at mushrooms. I downloaded an app just to help us identify it. That was a great bit of fun. And I found an apple tree, and my daughter had quite a few apples in that tree.
I had one. Yep.
Yeah.
I had one. We came across wild blueberries.
Yeah.
While we were up there.
Wild blueberries. I can't remember what the other one is. This low plant something.
Oh yeah, the one that
tasted like an apple.
It tasted like an apple.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was called now.
We did identify it. It wasn't a plant I was overly familiar with beforehand, but we did look it up. We looked it up on multiple apps to make sure. And I had my little field book there, and I checked a few things there. And we were very confident with what it was. We gave it a taste. It wasn't something that was... I don't think I could eat a bowl full of them by any means. But,
well, I remember it being very dry in your mouth. Like when you put it in your mouth, it kind of... It's like it took all the saliva away. It dried your mouth right out. But the flavor was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mild, dry apple.
Yeah, that's exactly what it tastes like to me, too. I mean, this time of year opens up a lot of opportunity. I mean, the scenery with the leaves changing, breathtaking.
Hey, you got to bring your camera. And, of course, most people have smartphones now, so we kind of all have cameras on our hips or in our pockets. But being in the woods this time of year, it's breathtaking.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, man. From the macro to the micro. You know what I mean? Like, big wide shots to down to taking, like, beautiful little shots right on the ground level. And, you know, we've seen so much. We found a beautiful waterfall while we were out. So the chance to explore and see things. And now, like, with the leaves kind of coming off, it opens up the view where before all you seen was a wall of green, which it is nice. It kind of blocks a lot of stuff it hides a lot of stuff, and as the leaves start to come down, this stuff opens up, and the whole scenery changes and the atmosphere changes. And I think to really enjoy an area, you need to see it through multiple seasons. And I've done the winter camping a few times, and I've done it close to my vehicle, and I've also gone like for a nice walk, taken sleds and backpacks and gone in a ways. And it's important to build up to that, like you said, like know your gear before you do the 4 or 5 mile hike in with your gear. But when you get back to some of these places, I remember one night right near a little pond, in the middle of the night, listening to the ice crack, because it does. And if you don't know what it is, it's terrifying. But if you know what it is, it's awesome. And it sounds sometimes like video games. You hear like a doo, and it just echoes through the lake. And sometimes it's a loud snap, and it's really cool. And when you know what it is, and you know you're perfectly fine. But I can see, like, if you weren't used to it and you're out in the woods and you hear that sound, you're gonna be like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah, something big just snapped a tree in half. Yeah, but it's not.
No. And like I said, sometimes it reminds me of video games. Like the noises is like someone just started up in a tear. but
and it's it's funny because we're all surrounded by so many sounds all the time, whether it's in our houses, whether it's appliances going and electronics going off and phones beeping and that sort of thing. But when you get out there and it's so quiet,
yeah,
it's amazing what you can hear. And especially when you're trying to go to sleep, it can be, you hear every leaf hitting the ground, you can hear it. And, provided that sort of thing doesn't give you any cause for concern, it's pretty amazing just to lay there and listen to it. The wind blowing through the trees, ice cracking, stuff like that. It's like the lullaby of the forest.
What I find, and I suspect you may find a similar thing, is sometimes you don't realize how much all the noises in like society wear you down. Like,
it's pollution.
It is. And once you get away from it and you're just sitting there and the only thing you hear is the wind going through the trees or a slight brook, it's like someone took a weight right off your back. It's like you didn't know that noise was there, but once it went away, you're like, how nice to not have it. How nice to be.
And for me, it's the difference in the noises too, because these noises, they're just there for you to enjoy. Like these noises, like your cell phone going off, that noise expects something from you. Like you have to go and you have to check it, see what it is, see if it's something. These noises demand something of your time, but when you're out in the woods, these noises are just for you to enjoy. You don't have to do anything except just listen and let them relax you. It's a completely different feeling. So
my favorite noise, bar none, has to be, and I know it's stereotypical and everyone's like, oh yeah, it's the loon. And you still, this time of year, you sometimes hear it, but you're out by a nice lake with a loon, and you wake up in the morning, a nice, cool, crisp morning, maybe a little haze on the water, and you're just sitting there and you hear that loon call out, and it is possibly the most peaceful noise I hear in the woods. But it's not the only noise that's awesome. Squirrels will chatter at you, they'll yell at you, they get very annoyed with you, but it's a pretty cool noise.
Especially if you're like under their tree.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've had them throw nuts at me, buddy. Like,
sure.
They get a little vicious, but
that's fair. You're in their space.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't blind, they do. And the other noises you hear is animals getting in and out of water. Surprisingly loud, surprisingly interesting, and I don't know if any of you guys have heard it, but like birds taking animals out in the middle of the night. That's pretty freaky too. But it is surprisingly peaceful and cool to hear that and be kind of part of it.
For sure.
And I've gotten up, and this is always cool, and like fresh snow in the winter, and you can see tracks and things that happen, and there's nothing that really helps teach you tracking skills like winter, because they're so blatant. Like it's stuff that you wouldn't see in the summer, you can, an amateur can see, but that really helps you later on in the year, because once you see it, you see that pattern. Well, that's in your head now. So when you go out in the summer, you'll see that pattern in grass, but when in the grass it doesn't stand out. But now you know it; it jumps out at you.
You can almost visualize it now because you've seen it before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Brian Fisher here says, it's amazing how loud an acorn hitting the roof of an outhouse can be in the middle of the night. Found this out. Yeah, I've been there too, Brian.
That's very specific.
Yeah, no, and I've been in that exact situation. And it sometimes feels like that might be coming through. Whack.
Yep, very true. Yeah. The other thing that I wrote down, Ben, is that often this time of year, and obviously certainly after Labor Day, is that a lot of camping areas are a lot less crowded than they are. I mean, for people who, whether you were camping in a provincial campground or a privately owned campground, like through the summer, I think everyone who's into camping was surprised at how busy campgrounds were, and in some cases it was very, very difficult. And I'm not talking about going, miles into the woods. Just your standard campground. They were busy.
Oh, yeah.
And but as the fall approaches, it gets very, very easy to get yourself a spot. And again, I'm not talking miles in the woods. I'm talking about if you just want to go to a campground and set up, where you have a tap and a power plug right beside you, it gets easier and easier to get into some of these places and not feel like you're crowded.
Actually,
get a little bit of space.
You bring up a great point. Years ago when I had a little pop-up camper, but I've done this with a tent too, and it works. You can rent the electric sites in the provincial and national campgrounds and get a space heater and just take him in the tent with you, and it makes a world of difference.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we used to do that. We used to go down to the Cape Breton Highlands, usually around this weekend, Thanksgiving weekend. It's coming up this weekend. And that was one of our favorite trips to do every year,
Yep.
was to go down there and just watch the leaves change. And the campgrounds weren't empty by any means, but they weren't full by any means either. They had whole branches that weren't even open because there wasn't enough people. And it's a different crew of people. It's people that really enjoy camping, where sometimes in the summer I think it's a lot of people who are more there for the social aspect and not so much there for the camping aspect. And there is a difference in this. I don't diss the people who do it for the social aspect. That's awesome too. But the people who really like the camping, it's a more pure experience, I find. And so I do enjoy that. But you're right. Keji this year, they opened their booking late, and it was surprising. It booked up like 90% of the sites, I think, were gone within a few hours for most of the summer. If you weren't there on the first day, you probably weren't getting a site until somebody canceled one later on. And that did happen. Like, you were able to get sites throughout the summer because people were constantly canceling and rebooking and stuff. But it was surprisingly hard this year to get into Keji. I didn't get into Keji this year for numerous reasons, but one of them was basically it was overbooked for most of the summer.
Year's not over yet, my friend.
No, it's not. Unfortunately, they don't do year-round camping anymore. If years ago they did, I kind of wish they would, because they have some great cabins that you could rent and walk to.
And just because you mentioned it along the same lines, for anybody who's wondering, there are a few campgrounds around Nova Scotia. I think they're probably, at least at the moment, maybe a little bit lesser known campgrounds, but there are some campgrounds that are open year-round. Year-round for fall, winter, spring camping, outside of your standard camping season, which is usually May 4 weekend until Labor Day, I guess.
Or
there are some campgrounds. Yeah, there are at least 4 that I know of around the province that are literally, they have campsites, and they are open for winter camping. Most of them are accessible by vehicle, car. You can literally drive in with your car in the winter, pitch a tent. At least 4 of them. So I've been to 2 of them myself in the winter, and they have some great amenities. I mean, they have washrooms that you can use. One off the top of my head actually has a pretty nice building that has a shower in it. So, even if you stay in your tent, middle of February, you can get up in the morning, walk up to the building, have a nice hot shower. So depending on what you're looking for, if you want to go out fall, winter camping, there are places that you can go that are, not way off grid. They're just in the woods. You can set yourself up and have a great experience. Dip your toes in the water and see how you like it. Fantastic.
At least 2 years in a row, or not in a row, but 2 years since I've been in Nova Scotia, I have stayed in Wakagama Park in Cape Breton. And they are open later in the year, and we were there hunting. Is the reason we were there. We had moose licenses and we were hunting, and we stayed for the full week to do it. And the best part of that park, by far, was the fact it had a washer and dryer on site. And if you're camping for a full week
Yeah.
and your stuff gets cool or damp, you
Yep.
you mentioned it, there's no way to dry it. Well, we had a dryer. I mean, it cost $1 or something. It was the best dollar I've ever spent because you take your wet clothes and stuff, you go down, you wash it, you dry it, and the next morning you go in nice, warm, dry clothes, and it's awesome.
Pull those pants out of the dryer. They're still hot.
Yeah.
Put them on right on the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. We stayed at one place. I think it was maybe in March.
Yeah.
March of this year, and I mean there was still snow on the ground, and they had a really nice building, and I don't know if I'm a podcast newbie, so I'm not sure if I should mention the place, but it was not far from Keji, actually, and they have a really nice kind of a lodge. And, even if you discovered that you didn't bring everything you needed to cook, you could go into this lodge, and they had everything from a microwave, stove, you name it. So if you wanted to get up in the morning, go and cook your breakfast inside this building, you could.
So I'm going to ask, and you're a bit of a newbie, but don't worry about it too much. So was I once. Is this associated with a Facebook page?
The campground, I don't know if they have a Facebook page. They might.
No, but there is a Facebook page for winter camping that organizes.
There is a Facebook group, absolutely, specifically for winter camping in Nova Scotia.
So
yeah.
I believe we are both members of this particular group. I've been
Yep.
less active on it. Do you mind? Because I'll mess it up right now. But do you mind listing what that group is?
The link for it?
Yeah.
I can send you the link if that's.
You can try sending the link for sure. Brian Fisher asking, is it Gateway?
That's easy. The place I was talking about, it is Gateway.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great spot.
We do not mind here at Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures to promote and help other local businesses, companies, Facebook groups to grow. We are not against that.
Sure.
So no, I don't mind putting that stuff out there. I don't know if it was Nova Scotia winter camping or something like that. I feel it was.
Yeah, I have the link right here, Ben. I can send it to you. Like I mentioned, I know of at least 4. I can think of 3 of them off the top of my head. So there is Gateway. Another one is Bear River.
Yes, Bear River is one I've heard. I've never gone on any of these group camps with these people.
Yeah.
Winter camping in Nova Scotia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
I believe.
Yeah, I mean it's a Facebook group specifically dedicated to camping in the winter.
Yeah.
Obviously in Nova Scotia. The interesting thing about these groups when they go out, when I have gone, there's typically, I want to say, somewhere in the ballpark of 15 to 30 people, and a broad range of skill sets and ages and backgrounds. You know, you have people who are literally camping on top of the snow under a tarp, and other people who have much more sophisticated setups with things like hot tents and things like that. 18 years old to 80, and such a great opportunity to meet people who are into this sort of thing, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And the other nice thing is that if you get out there and discover that you forgot something, somebody has it. Somebody brought it.
Yeah. No, it's a great chance to potentially see what other setups are like, and if it's something you'd even be interested in. Because here's the thing. You can spend a small fortune doing this, but you can actually do it for relatively little. And it's surprisingly how little you actually need to get out. It can be as little as a few dollars, or not dollar store, well, possibly dollar store, but a few thrift store buys and a decent tarp can get you out winter camping and be very comfortable. You can buy a $2,000 tarp, a $1,000 backpacking stove. I mean, you can easily be in just 10, 15 grand if you want, or you can do it for under $100. And I'm not exaggerating with either of those numbers. The sky's the limit of what you could pay, and what you need to, but figuring out what you enjoy, what really brings you joy, and sleeping under a tarp and being able to see out and see the trees and stuff, and have a nice warm wool blanket because it's a bit more traditional, a bit more. If that brings you the happiness, then there's no need to spend thousands of dollars on a top of the line tarp or tent stove combo. Like, it's not what you're going to really enjoy. But if you really want that extra stuff, you can do it. I've built 2 winter stoves here. I mean, one I'm basically kicking as I sit here, and the other one's over in the corner. For very little money. As an old ammo can I had, I picked up a few things, but I mean, you can spend as much or as little on these things as you want, and it's a fun adventure. It's a fun hobby. It's a hobby if it's not a sport. It's as much a sport as fishing or many other things are, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, to me, the fall is the perfect time of year to kind of figure out if you already have gear, and maybe it's great in August. How would it be in September? To go out, try it in September. Maybe your sleeping bag is perfectly adequate for September. Maybe you get out there and go, you know what? That was fine. It probably wouldn't work for November. So then you have an opportunity to decide if you want to, pick up something new. You may go out in November with that same gear and go, you know what? I was cold. It was a little chilly. So yeah, that sleeping bag is not going to work in February. But now is the time of year to test these things and kind of see, you know what, that was actually really fun. It was so nice to wake up with that cool, refreshing air in the tent. And it was, it was 10 degrees or it was 5 degrees. I wonder what it would be like if it was minus 5 degrees. And just kind of figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
And, just jumping back to my own first experience, waking up in the middle of the night and being sweaty in my sleeping bag.
Yeah.
A warmer sleeping bag? Absolutely not, that was -8, and if I had a sweat on at -8, that I will never need a warmer sleeping bag. That was it.
Yeah.
So, unless I start beginning some kind of Arctic adventures, but
is that an option yet?
one of these days.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many places I would love to visit and try. But one of them is just going back to Newfoundland. Totally different experience, believe it or not. It's not that far away. Northern Ontario, northern Quebec would be neat. I'd love to get up in Labrador. I've been up there in the past, never camped up there, but I kind of want to. And there's so many things that are locally available. And this is a time, so we started this off with a statement, more and more people are getting into this. And what we kind of got to realize is, in this time and age right now, people are finding it more difficult to go away and travel, to go further away. It is, there are the additional challenges. So people are looking at, what do we have here? And we have some of the most beautiful spots in the world, believe it or not. Like, we may be biased, but we do. We have some awful gorgeous area to explore and see here. And there's so much in our own backyard that we haven't seen, that there's not really a need, if you don't want to go around the world to find something that's much better. Is there a beautiful place around the world? God, for sure.
Sure.
But there's plenty to see close to here.
I mean, as someone who was born and raised in Nova Scotia, it is shocking and even potentially embarrassing to think about the number of areas in this province that I have not seen. The places that I have not been. And, camping aside, I mean, there are all of our beautiful shorelines and, mountains and scenery. It's just stunning. year round for different reasons, whether it's leaves in the fall or, whale watching in the summer or whatever you're doing. It's a beautiful province. And, it would take you a very long time to see all of it and appreciate everything that it has to offer. I mean, I'm a big fan of Nova Scotia. So
we shortly after I came here, we bought it. So like I met my wife and we bought one of these pop-up campers. And from the day we bought it, from May 24th till basically after Thanksgiving, we camped every single weekend. Every weekend we went somewhere different. And not to say we never used the same campground twice, but we didn't do twice in a row. Like we'd often do Dollar Lake, or we'd often do Smiley's, or we'd often do, like, we had our favorites that we'd return to.
Sure.
But I think we hit every provincial campground. We hit quite a few private ones. We hit the national ones. We also hit ones in New Brunswick and Newfoundland, and we were able to go and see something new every time. And every time we go somewhere, we'd look around. What does the province have? What does the area have to offer? And you have your natural beauties and stuff, but you also have like museums and heritage sites and so much to see. And this is a bit out of the bushcraft, but it just goes to show you how much we have to offer. And all the Atlantic provinces definitely have it, and I'm sure that, I'm not knocking anywhere else, because I bet you go down to Maine and many of the states, you'd find the same thing. You go to Quebec and Ontario, you'd find the same thing. But there's so much to see locally. And this hobby, this activity is great because it really does get you out there, and it gets you seeing places. And the ability to go a little bit further, a little bit more off the beaten path, you can see so much more. It's really fun and exciting. We've killed our
I've been warned that it's addictive.
No, it is addictive, and you will eventually have a room sort of like I'm in now that's just full of camping. And when you go to pick up your camping gear, you'll be like, there's nowhere to put it. It just doesn't fit anywhere. And you got to make a trip. You're like, do I want to take this tarp or these tarps? Or do I need this? Yeah. No. And someone told me one time I have too much. And I'm like, no. Each one has a purpose.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
But,
sometimes you need an 8x10 tarp. Sometimes you need a 10x10. Might be a 10x12.
Yeah.
It's hard to know. And you don't want to have the wrong one.
No.
Very important.
But you need the skill to make any one work.
Yeah.
But you also know, what if I'm going with a buddy? What if I'm taking a couple of kids? What if I'm going in this type of weather? It's nice to have those options and stuff.
Sure.
And play with. So this, it is fun. And getting out in the winter, out in the fall, I mean, there's a whole, it opens up the whole camping experience is different, and I think it's definitely worth trying out.
I gotta be honest with you, I did not go camping this summer.
No,
I'm not a summer camper.
No,
I'm just not. That may change, and it probably will change now because I recently became the owner of a canoe.
I've heard that.
Yeah, so the whole summer camping thing will probably change for me, but that's going to be much more about being on the water than the actual camping. Between insects and temperatures, summer camping is not going to be my big deal. For me, it's going to be fall and winter. Spring has its own challenges. Camping in the spring is kind of a little bit hit and miss, but fall camping, 100%. Winter camping, I'm already in love with. We'll see what happens with the summer stuff, it's funny because it's kind of opposite of what most people think.
Yeah.
But
no, it is. But you mentioned the canoe, and honestly, like, it does open up a whole avenue and stuff, and it's very fun. Spring for me is the absolute worst for insects. It seems like as soon as things start to melt, the insects come out with a vengeance. And there's actually a few weeks where I think it's almost impossible to camp. It's not, but it feels it.
I just got a shiver thinking about a June bug flying into the back of my head and falling down the back of my shirt.
Anyways, we have successfully killed an hour and plus.
We did.
Which is the goal of Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures, in case anyone didn't know, to get our podcast to under an hour. We rarely do it.
I thought it was going to be to kill an hour.
Well, no. We've been actively working at getting better at cutting our time down to something more reasonable. But thanks for everyone who came out and listened. And if you learned anything great, I hope you guys get out and try it. If you do, I'd love to hear about it. Send us pictures, pics, videos, anything you're willing to share. If you're ever in the area and look for someone to camp, you can reach out to us. Sometimes we're looking for buddies. Like I said, I've met some of the best people I've met is doing this, chatting on Facebook, through YouTube, other avenues, getting to meet some really amazing people. Steve is one of these people. I hope he understands and knows that. But, it's a great chance to meet people and to see new things and try things and learn things. Because no matter how experienced you think you are, you'll learn new things from sometimes the most novice of people to the most experienced of people. And it's really neat what you can learn and experience. So I've always enjoyed it. Rather be outside, miss the show. I tell you. It's too late to go back and see it, Chris.
Too late. Yep. One-shot deal.
Yeah. Anyways, thanks everyone, and looking forward to seeing you next week. Just one last thing. I believe, and let me double check something here because I'm horrible. We are still hoping to do a little group camp for anyone who's interested. Reach out to us with one of the links on our channel. But I think the hope is to do it around the 23rd and 24th of this month. The exact location has not been set, but it will be here in Nova Scotia. Probably somewhere in, I will call it, central area. So if you're interested in that, I believe, Steve, you've expressed an interest in joining us for that.
I'll be there.
Yeah. Reach out. You might have a chance to meet some pretty cool people and, have a good time. So, anyways, night all. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks for the invite, Ben. It was fun.
Anytime. Okay, stream should be ended. Perfect. No, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah. No, now it's ended.